Nagumo Hajime is an ugly, disgusting loser who gets summoned into another world alongside his classmates. All of them are chosen to be heroes of this world, but Hajime turns out to be a loser with a useless ability. On a mission, Hajime's classmates ultimately betray him and he ends up falling into a trap. Despite all this, Hajime wants to survive and take revenge. Will he be able to survive the labyrinth and take his revenge? Hajime suddenly wakes up in a dark place where he couldn't see anything. He wonders where he actually is and realizes that he's not dead yet. He has fallen so deep into the labyrinth that no one has ever made it to this level. Without wasting any time, he decides to find some stairs that lead to the upper levels. As he is wandering around, he notices a rabbit and immediately deems it a pathetic weakling like himself. But after he witnesses the rabbit tear apart two strong monsters, he pisses himself. Since he cannot keep his ugly ass mouth shut, the rabbit notices him and rushes towards him. Just as the rabbit is about to finish his disgusting life, another massive monster appears behind him and finishes off the rabbit. The monster even devours the rabbit just like Jimbro, who is on a bulk. Seeing this, Hajime realizes that it's his turn and runs for his life. But the monster cuts off his arm and turns him into a Walmart version of Shanks. The monster then consumes his arm in front of him, and as it approaches Hajime, he uses Transmute to dig a hole and escapes. He keeps using Transmute and eventually manages to escape from the Shanks fan. Despite this, his chances of survival are extremely low because his arm is still bleeding and he ultimately falls unconscious. After some time, Hajime wakes up in a mysterious place with a huge magical crystal above him. He recognizes it as a holy crystal, which is a mythological stone formed by the crystallization of mana. 10 days before all this, Hajime had read up about the holy water in a book because he wanted to help his classmates, but he soon realized that he cannot fight. He then remembers the monster that turned him into Shanks and realizes that he cannot fight it because it's even stronger than a behemoth. He even believes that he shouldn't have entered the labyrinth to impress his crush, who doesn't give a shit about him. 7 days ago, as Hajime and his classmates were exploring the labyrinth, they came across a huge mana crystal and a gold digger touched it without permission. This teleports all of them to a bridge where they have to participate in the Squid Game. The general who is accompanying them realizes that it is a trap and instructs them to get behind. He attempts to protect them using holy magic, but the behemoth breaks through his defense like prime Leo Messi did with Real Madrid. This shatters the bridge, and as it's falling out, our hero Hajime is out there protecting his crush like the simp he is. His magic allows all of them to escape, and the general promises to rescue him and instructs him to run. In the present, Hajime has completely lost his mind and wonders who's behind all this. Back when he was running towards his classmates, the general instructed all of them to shoot beams towards the behemoth. But for some reason, one of them was targeted towards Hajime and ended up falling right in front of the behemoth. Despite all their efforts, Hajime ends up falling off the shattering bridge alongside the behemoth. One day before all this, his crush had visited him in his room and urged him not to participate in the test because she had a weird dream. However, being the simp he is, Hajime shamelessly asks her to protect him if anything happens. In the present, as Hajime is lying all alone, he wonders what went wrong. All he wanted to do was to help his classmates, but they ended up betraying him and the monsters were way too overpowered for him. Wondering what he should have done in this situation, Hajime realizes that everything between him and his home are his enemies. With no other option left, he decides to eat monsters and survive. After consuming water from the cave, Hajime sets out to hunt monsters. He lures them into a trap and kills them using a spear. He then devours them, and after taking the first bite, his throat starts hurting and it feels like something is devouring him from the inside. Just as he consumes some water, his hair color changes to white and his muscles pop out like all the fake natties out there. His entire DNA structure changes and he notices that his body actually feels lighter even though it felt like he might die. He then checks his stats and notices that he has leveled up after eating monsters. He also acquired skills like mana manipulation and a thunder manipulation skill that the monster had. And even though he cannot shoot it like the monster, he can still use it to cook meat. Despite this, the meat still tastes like shit, but I hope it tastes better than my sister's cooking. At this point, Hajime realizes that he needs a weapon and decides to forge one using his skills. He uses Tower Stone and Blast Rock to create a pistol and some bullets. He can use his lightning magic to ignite the Blast Rock and launch the bullets. This allows him to kill the rabbit rather smoothly, and he names the pistol Donner. He keeps eating monster meat and keeps leveling up. He also notices some skills the rabbit had used against him and tests them out. With all these skills, he decides to take revenge from the monster that devoured his arm like a barbecue. Seeing Hajime, the monster ambushes him to take off his other arm as well, but he dodges his attack. He then uses aerodynamics to get up in the air and shoots his bullets, but he immediately realizes that his aim sucks, and the monster takes his opportunity to smash him into the ground. Hajime then uses a flash bomb to blind the monster and takes off his arm. He even bites the arm in front of the monster to take his revenge and finishes him off with his thunder magic. After shooting him through his thick skull, he takes the monster with him to his lair. Several days have gone by, and while consuming the monsters, Hajime has also replenished his bullet supply. However, he soon realizes that eating these monsters won't help him level up any further. With no success in finding a way upwards, he's left with no choice but to continue downward. Hajime understands that if he can use his transmute ability horizontally, he should be able to use it vertically. As he's wandering around the labyrinth, he comes across a lizard that attempts to petrify him, but he uses holy water to stop the petrification and blinds the lizard with a flash bomb. After finishing off the lizard, he continues his journey and kills a plethora of monsters. He consumes all of them like your average mukbanger who probably starves themselves on normal days. With all of this going on, the general and his classmates inform the king about what transpired in the labyrinth. They inform him about a trap that utilizes Glanz crystal, and it teleports them to the 65th floor where the behemoth resides. They further inform him that one of the heroes has also gone missing, and the king instructs them to keep it a secret from the public. One of the heroes who is listening to all this remembers the time when they got teleported to the bridge and returns back to her room where Kaori is still unconscious. She also remembers how Hajime was down bad for Kaori and saved her sorry ass. Even though Kaori wanted to save him, they had to stop her. Back when Hajime and the others were summoned to this world, they were greeted by the king who educated them about everything in this world. According to him, there are 3 races in this world including humans, demons, and beastmen. The humans and demons have been fighting ever since the beginning, but the demons have had an advantage over them since they can control monsters. For this purpose, the humans had to summon heroes from another world. How come these people always end up summoning some random high schoolers who cannot even talk to women just like you guys? Hearing all this, the students agreed to help these useless humans and joined forces. In the present, as Shizuki is training outside, she notices Yagashi tweaking about something and advises him to train and stop procrastinating. Just then, she remembers that Yagashi always used to fight with Hajime and wonders if he has a crush on Kaori. After this, she heads inside where Kaori had woken up from her sleep. She immediately asks Shizuki about Hajime as she informs him that he is still missing. Hearing this, she gets up and wants to save him, but falls to the ground because she is too weak. In the meantime, Hajime has reached the last floor where he notices a massive door and wonders if he can find some answers there. However, as he approaches the door, he notices that it has some strange markings, and even though he's a nerd who has read over 1,000,000 books, unlike you guys who just rot in front of these screens, he attempts to open the door using transmute, but it fails. Just then, 2 massive golems who appear to be guarding the door awaken and ambush him. Without wasting any time, he gets rid of one of them with a single bullet and attacks the other one as well. However, he soon realizes that this golem can create barriers that stop his bullets. Despite this, he keeps attacking the golem and eventually realizes that the ugly monster is not actually chasing him. Using this to his advantage, he keeps shooting the monster from a distance and ultimately kills it as well. In the meantime, Kaori believes that Hajime is still alive and wants to save him. To save him, she wants to get even stronger and asks Shizuki to help her, and she agrees. Meanwhile, Hajime finds some mana stones inside the golems and uses them to open the door. Just as he opens it, he visualizes a bright starry sky with a golden cube right in the middle. As he gets closer to the cube, mysterious green tentacles start regressing and reveal a naked girl stuck inside the cube. Seeing this, Hajime decides to leave, but the girl urges him to help her. Hajime, however, asserts that he cannot possibly help someone who was sealed in a freaking labyrinth. Despite this, the girl tells him that she was betrayed by her people, which gives Hajime PTSD and he turns back like a simp. He then questions the girl as to why she was sealed here, as she tells him that she is an overpowered vampire who used to rule her kind. However, one day, her ministers told her that she is no longer needed because she is way too flat-chested and her uncle stepped forward to rule the nation. Her people deemed her a threat to them, and since they could not kill her, they decided to seal her in the labyrinth. Despite all this, he decides to save her and releases her from the cube. The girl then grabs his hand and comments that he is warm. She then asks his name as Hajime introduces himself and asks her in return. The girl tells him that she wants him to name her because she doesn't like her previous name. Hearing this, Hajime decides to name her Yue, which means moon in Japanese. This makes the girl insanely happy and hugs him, which turns him on, and he gets a boner. Just then, Hajime notices some projectiles aimed towards them and saves Yue while taking the hit himself. Hajime gets his back pierced by some massive needles, and despite overwhelming pain, he pulls them out by his bare hands. Yue also assists him, and it turns out that a massive ugly crab is still alive. The crab was cultured enough to let them complete their introduction and attack during the climax. Hajime realizes that it must be there to prevent Yue from leaving this room. He then hands over his cloak to her because her cutting board chest might trigger the monster even more. She calls Hajime a pervert and gets on his back, and the battle begins. Hajime keeps shooting the monster with his donner, but it has no effect on the monster owing to its thick shell. He even uses some bombs, hoping that they might damage the armor, but all in vain. As they are hiding from it, Yue gets off of him and takes off her clothes. She then approaches Hajime and bites his neck, which turns him on. However, he realizes that this is not the right time to get freaky and focuses his concentration on the monster. The monster also possesses the ability to manipulate the earth around him, but Hajime is the perfect counter for that because of his skill. After Yue is done drinking his blood, she creates a massive fireball above the monster and strikes it. Just then, she falls to the ground because high-tier magic consumes too much mana. Seeing all this, Hajime asks her to launch another fireball, even if it's smaller than her plot. He then attracts the monster towards himself while Yue prepares for another attack. Just as she drops the fireball on it, Hajime uses his donner to pierce the monster's thick skull. Yue then questions why he didn't just abandon her, and Hajime replies that while he might look like an edgelord, he's not ready to go full villain arc just yet. After all this, they settle down and have dinner while Yue tells him about the Mavericks who created these labyrinths because they picked a fight with the gods. This makes Hajime realize that they will definitely find something if they reach the last floor. After this, he examines the monster and creates a railgun version of his donner. Suddenly, Yue asks what actually happened to him and what is he even doing here. Hajime tells her everything about his past and how he got betrayed by his own classmates. This makes her insanely sad and she starts crying. Seeing this, Hajime reassures her that he doesn't give flying Fs about his classmates anymore and just wants to go back. This makes her even more sad because she doesn't have a home to return to since her entire species were wiped out about 300 years ago. Hajime then offers to take her with him if she wants. He explains that the Earth might be a boring place for her because it doesn't have magic, but at least she won't be homeless like my broke ass. In the meantime, Hajime's classmates are continuing their training with the general and have improved a lot. Meanwhile, as Hajime and Yue are talking about all this, they notice the ground trembling, and the next moment, a horde of I'm Just a Girl monsters are chasing after them. As they are running, Hajime wonders what the flower on their forehead means and realizes that these flowers are probably parasites and someone else is controlling them. Just as one of the monsters is about to devour them, Hajime slips into a cave and makes his way to a mysterious place. Amidst all this, Yue keeps consuming his blood just because it tastes delicious. As they are wandering around, the monsters eventually find them and the chase begins again. With his insane plot armor, Hajime finds another cave and leaves the monsters behind. He even seals the entrance to make sure that these weird monsters don't make their way into the cave. Later on, they come across some mysterious green bubbles, and Hajime immediately realizes that it must be an attack from the source that is controlling the parasites. Suddenly, Yue points her magic toward him and even launches an attack at him. A flower also grows on her head, and she has officially become a pick-me. Hajime keeps dodging her attacks as in the meantime, a monster uglier than the Karen next door appears at the spot. Hajime immediately realizes that she is the source of all these parasites, and just as he points his donner at her, she takes Yue as a hostage. She uses Yue to strike him with her magic and tries to take over his body as well, but all that monster bringing has made him resistant. Seeing all this, Yue urges him to shoot and not care about her. Hajime, who is waiting to hear these words, grabs his donner and shoots the ugly creature. This shocks Yue because she wasn't expecting him to shoot without hesitation and gets angry over this. Hajime explains that he shot because she allowed him to and he didn't actually miss. After all this, as they are eating, Hajime offers her some food, but Yue denies. Hajime remembers that Yue is basically immortal and can survive without food. Despite this, he asks if she is not hungry, to which she replies positively, which makes him question if she ate anything. Yue points towards him and affirms him that his blood was more than enough. With this, she approaches him and takes off her clothes to suck him dry. After some time, both of them reach a floor with stairs going downwards as Hajime comments that they have finally reached floor 100. He is confident that they will definitely find something here, and after wandering around for a while, they come across a room with a huge door. Just as they open the door, they reach a massive hall with huge ice pillars. As they are wandering around, the ground starts trembling and a massive magic circle appears beneath them. Hajime immediately realizes that this must be the final boss, and just then, a 6-headed dragon that probably recognizes as a rainbow appears before them. The dragons ambush them and launch a plethora of attacks towards them. Hajime and Yue, however, dodge all their attacks smoothly and counterattack. It seems like they have the upper hand, but the white dragon in the middle heals all of them. Realizing that they should target it first, the other dragons ambush them once again. Hajime creates an opening for Yue to strike, but the yellow dragon acts as a shield and protects it. Yue attempts to launch another attack, but a green dragon sneaks from behind and hurls her away. The dragon then approaches her and uses some mind manipulation to show her the time when she was trapped in that dark room. She then visualizes Hajime leaving her behind and loses her mind. She falls to the ground and the dragon sees the opportunity to devour her. However, Hajime appears just in time and saves her sorry ass. Inspired by Hollywood, Hajime uses a grenade to divert their attention and creates a wall to heal her. He heals her using a potion and Yue wakes up. She is glad to see that Hajime is still with her because she feared that even he had left her. Suddenly, Hajime leans down and kisses her. He tells her to stay calm and that they will defeat this dragon to return home. With no other option left, he decides to use the railgun, and since he can only fire one bullet at a time, he asks Yue to cover for him. With this, Yue launches all sorts of attacks towards them to divert their attention. This green dragon attempts to manipulate her once again, but this time around, Yue remembers the kiss from Hajime and remains conscious. The dragon then diverts his attention towards Hajime and uses the same trick on him. He shows Hajime the time his arm got devoured by the monster, but little does it know, Hajime doesn't give a shit about anything and has moved on, unlike you guys who are still stuck on your useless exes. He then grabs the railgun and launches a massive attack which doesn't do shit to the dragons. Yue uses her heavenly blast from behind to support him, which ends up killing 3 dragons. With this, Yue falls to the ground because high-ranking spells use too much mana. Seeing this, Hajime approaches her and just then, the white dragon appears behind him. The dragon targets Yue and with no other option left, Hajime takes a strike for her and falls to the ground as his railgun turns into dust. Seeing this devastating sight, Yue takes him to a shelter and attempts to heal him using the healing potion. Meanwhile, the white dragon keeps attacking them. She even kisses him, but that doesn't do shit. At this point, Yue decides to protect him just like he protected her. She grabs his donner and approaches the white dragon. Her soccer ass manages to land a couple of blows that end up infuriating it even more, and the dragon launches a massive blow towards her. Being immortal, Yue doesn't die from this, but loses the donner. She tries reaching it, but her fragile body doesn't support her and tears start rolling down her cheeks. Even though Hajime is unconscious, he can still feel Yue fighting for him and crying. He refuses to accept that he will lose his partner in this dungeon, and that too by the hands on this filthy creature. Meanwhile, the monster continues its assault and once again targets Yue. Realizing that she cannot do anything, she apologizes to Hajime for being too useless. Suddenly, Hajime's plot armor kicks in and he saves her out of nowhere. For some reason, the monster's attacks have gotten way too slow for Hajime. He then asks Yue to suck his blood because he needs her help to defeat the monster. Previously, when Yue was about to die, something awakened inside Hajime, and no, I'm not talking about his Excalibur. Just like your average protagonist, Hajime gets an insane power-up and he saves Yue. In the present, Hajime asks Yue to use her Azure Blue when he signals her and focus on healing herself at the moment. Meanwhile, he will make some preparations while tackling the monster. He uses his donner to create some holes in the ceiling and then he uses the grenades to blow it up. With this, the ceiling falls on it and the monster gets trapped. He then signals Yue to use her Azure Blue to obliterate the monster. Now that the final boss is dead, both of them fall to the ground as Yue tells Hajime that he did a fascinating job. In the meantime, Hajime's useless teacher is arguing with the priest that they are forcing her students to fight without any rest. She further asserts that they need some time to deal with Hajime's loss. Tired of her continuous yapping, the priest promises that the students won't be forced to fight against their will. Meanwhile, Hajime's classmates are training in the labyrinth. Kaori is still thinking about Hajime as her classmates look after her. After all this, Hajime wakes up at a mansion and wonders what he is doing on a bed when they are supposed to be in a labyrinth. Just then, Yue moans out of nowhere and Hajime notices something hard in his hand which scares the living shit out of him. He attempts to wake her up and with no other option left, he electrocutes her. Seeing Hajime, Yue gets insanely happy and hugs him. Hajime apologizes for worrying her and questions about this mansion. Yue tells him that after they defeated the boss, the gate opened and she took him inside. After wandering around for a while, she stumbled across the mansion and fed him some medicine. She also changed his clothes and got a bit freaky in the process. After this, they change clothes and head outside the mansion where Hajime notices the sky. Yue informs him that the sky gets dark during the night and there are even rivers in this place. They eventually come across another mansion which Yue has already explored, but she failed to unlock 2 rooms. Hajime also notices a bath, and since he hasn't bathed in a while, just like your average Discord mod, he decides to take one after exploring the mansion. Yue also wants to get in, but he refuses, stating that he wants to bathe alone. After discovering that the library and workshop are sealed, they head to the 3rd floor where they come across a huge room with a skeleton sitting on the throne. Hajime immediately realizes that this room is definitely the key to getting outside and steps into an obviously sketchy looking magic circle. Just as he steps his foot inside the circle, it starts glowing and a ghost appears before him. The ghost introduces himself as Oscar Orcus, the owner of this labyrinth. He asserts that he cannot answer their questions because he's just a ghost and just wants to share the reason behind his actions and why he did everything. In the meantime, Hajime's classmates have made it to the 65th floor and eventually come across the behemoth again. The general explains that since they don't know the spawn rate of the monsters in the labyrinth, they cannot predict how many times the monster will respawn. The general literally shits himself, but the heroes are confident this time around. They know that they have to work hard and can defeat the behemoth. The battle begins with Shizuku and the guy with shiny armor ambushing the behemoth. They manage to cut off its horns, but the ugly-ass creature is still too overpowered and jumps over the front guard to attack the rear guard. However, much to its surprise, the supporting heroes aren't as weak as they look. They block that attack like Sakura, surprising everyone with some actual screen time. In the end, the shiny armor guy obliterates the monster with his limit break. With this, they have defeated the behemoth as all of them celebrate their victory. In the meantime, Oscar tells Hajime that he wants to grant him his power and urges him to not use it for evil. He also wishes that he can live on his own free will, and with this, he vanishes. Suddenly, memories flood Hajime's brain and the magic circle vanishes. These memories make Hajime realize that Oscar wasn't a maverick or evil god, he was a liberator. Despite all this, he doesn't give a shit about what happens to this world and just wants to go back. He questions Yue if she is worried about that, to which she replies negatively and asserts that she belongs here, and she grabs his hand. Hajime gets a boner after hearing this and diverts the topic as he reveals that he has learned some ancient magic. This magic is known as creation magic, and it allows him to add energy to raw materials and grant them special qualities. He also offers to teach Yue this, but they soon realize that some casters are more compatible with such magic than others. Before doing anything else, they decide to bury Oscar's corpse, and after this, they head to the library because Hajime can actually read, unlike your dumbasses who probably won't even graduate high school. As they read different books, they eventually come across one that mentions the magic circle that leads to the surface, and they need Oscar's ring for that. Yue then notices a unique book and hands it over to Hajime, who reads it. According to this book, they can acquire other forms of ancient magic if they conquer other labyrinths. This piques his interest and he decides to go with this plan, hoping that they eventually acquire magic that will help him get back to his world. With this, Hajime starts preparing in the workshop to head back to the surface. He asserts that they should prepare as much as they can because they have to enter other labyrinths. Yue, on the other hand, doesn't mind as long as she is with Hajime. After all this, as Hajime is taking a bath, Yue decides to join him. Seeing her cutting board-ass chest, Hajime gets a boner and he asks her to grab a towel. However, being a shameless Yue announces that she belongs to him and wants him to look at her. After all this, Hajime and Yue prepare their equipment and he keeps eating monsters to acquire more skills. He also makes a ring for Yue and finally proposes to her. With this, they decide to head back to the surface. Hajime asserts that the people on the surface might get a little bit hostile towards him because his powers are abnormal, but they will keep supporting each other. He further announces that they will defeat and conquer the entire world together. With all of this going on, a girl cosplaying as a bunny is waiting for someone on the surface. Just as she is hiding, a monster appears out of nowhere and ambushes her. She attempts to climb a mountain to escape, as suddenly, a magic circle appears before her with Hajime and Yue appearing from it. Upon taking a closer look, the girl recognizes them as the ones he has been waiting for. Meanwhile, just as Hajime and Yue are about to get freaky, he notices someone approaching them. Both of them completely ignore her, just like I ignore my little brother when he wants to play with me. The girl, however, is persistent as he grabs Hajime's leg and literally begs him to save her family. Yue, on the other hand, grabs her ears and urges her to get away from him. Despite her begging, Hajime refuses to help someone he has never met before. Hearing this, the girl attempts to seduce him with her massive melons, but much to her surprise, Hajime is more of a personality guy. Just then, the monster appears before Hajime and gets obliterated. In the meantime, the girl grabs his leg once again and gets smacked by Yue. She introduces herself as Shay, of the Howlia Beast Tribe. Seeing her persistent efforts, Hajime decides to hear her out. This relieves Shay and she wipes off her tears using Hajime's shirt, which pisses him off and he smacks her again. She cannot comprehend how someone can hit a beauty like her, but Hajime disagrees, questioning how she can say something so outrageous in the presence of Yue. Shay, however, asserts that she is way better than Yue, who is flatter than a cutting board. She attempts to seduce Hajime once again, which infuriates Yue, and she gets her ass whooped by her. After all this, Shay explains that the Beastmen cannot manipulate mana, but for some reason, she possesses the ability of foresight, which allows her to peek into the future. She then begs them to save her tribe, but Hajime refuses and summons his Batmobile. Just as they are about to leave, Shay asks if they are headed towards the Great Sea of Trees and further asserts that they will get lost if they go alone. She offers to guide them to their destination if they agree to help her. Hearing this, Hajime decides to help her. In the meantime, a dumbass girl is carrying some fruits into the forest with her parents trying to warn her about the dragon. Just as she is about to get devoured, someone shoots the dragon and it turns out that Hajime is the one behind this. Just as he's about to shoot some more dragons, Shay accidentally disturbs him by placing her melons on his shoulder, which gives him a boner. To get rid of this distraction, he tosses her into the sky and uses her as bait while shooting the dragons. Previously, Shay had explained that she was supposed to be killed by other beastmen because she can manipulate mana, but his tribe decided to protect her and left their hometown. Inspired by Sakura, the rabbit men are pretty much useless and cannot do shit. After they lead Hajime to their hometown, he gets rid of the other beastmen who were threatening them. After all this, Shay expresses her gratitude for saving her tribe and questions the purpose behind their journey. Hajime reveals that he just wants to go back home, as Shay decides to accompany them as well. Well, she gets shot down by Hajime and Yue quicker than your crush friend-zoning you. The following day, as they are about to leave, the villagers beg Hajime to train them because they are tired of being weak. Even though he's a bit hesitant in the beginning, he decides to train them. Soon after he begins training, Hajime realizes that these folks are even more useless than Darwin Nunez and decides to mold them. In the meantime, Yue and Shay are having a duel, and even though Shay gets obliterated, she manages to scratch Yue. Just then, Hajime appears at the spot and questions Yue about her progress. Yue reveals that she possesses an insane level of strength and is actually not that useless. Shay then urges Hajime to let her accompany them, which makes him question the reason behind it. Shay reveals that she is actually in love with Hajime, which shocks them. Suddenly, the villagers appear at the spot and inform Hajime that they have hunted down all the monsters. Shay gets shocked to see that Hajime has completely transformed them. After this, they head to the Great Sea of Trees where they come across the entrance of the labyrinth. This labyrinth, however, is sealed and they need to acquire artifacts from other labyrinths to enter. With no other option left, they decide to explore the other labyrinths and collect the ancient magics. Hearing this, the villagers offer to accompany them, but Hajime refuses, stating that they can now take care of themselves. Despite this, they want to follow, but Hajime asserts that he will definitely need them when he comes here in the future, so he wants them to continue training. Back when Shay was a child, she was scared that people would refer to her as a monster and didn't want to be different. Her mother, however, reassured her that she will eventually meet people who are different just like her. In the present, she reminds Yue regarding their promise that if she manages to even scratch her, Yue will allow her to accompany them. With no other option left, she pleads with Hajime to let her accompany them because she doesn't want to break her promise. Hajime asserts that she should not expect him to reciprocate her feelings, but Shay is optimistic that she can change the future if she works hard enough.